It's not Cam Newton. You cannot blame Cam Newton. Cam Newton was signed at the end of the offseason in a COVID offseason where he's having to learn a complex playbook. He's having to learn a complex system. And next to that, he gets COVID in the middle of the year after he started off his season as an MVP candidate, 2-1. His receiving core is the worst in football by a country mile, guys. It's not particularly close. The team traded for a guy named Isaiah Ford, the 8th string receiver on the Dolphins, and he's going to end up being their starting player probably in 2 weeks. So that just speaks to the talent that they have on the roster. You lose Julian Edelman, you lose your starting right tackle before the year. All right? You lose Dante Hightower, you lose Patrick Chung to the COVID opt-outs. Okay, those were 2 big losses. And that has something to do with where most of the blame is going, and that's Bill Belichick. And not Bill Belichick, the coach, all right? Bill Belichick, the GM. Because Bill Belichick, the GM, is being blamed for the construction of this roster. And what did Bill Belichick say this week? He said, I sold out to win 3 Super Bowls. We went to 3 Super Bowls. We went to another AFC Championship game or whatever, and I sold out we went to another Super Bowl and we lost because of my fault, by the way. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. I'm supposed to rant, right? This is a rant show. Let's get into it, all right? So as far as I see the Patriot Dynasty is built up of 2 periods, essentially. So let's just split it up into decades. So from 2010 to 2020 and from 2001 to 2009. Let's just split it up into 2 decades, all right? So the Patriot Dynasty, 20 years. The Patriots, this is the way, because everyone wants to know, who is the reason the Patriots are what they were? Why did the dynasty happen? Was it Brady? Was it Belichick? Who do you give the blame? Who do you give all the credit to, right? Well, I've always been somebody to say it's 50-50. Down the line, and even more so, I've swayed towards Belichick because he's the coach. He is, in many ways, the system, the ideology of the franchise, and that is the 60-40 split to me was mostly Belichick because of the construction, right, of the dynasty, of the teams, of the Patriot way. It wasn't Brady, it was Belichick. All right. But I think many could now say that the first 3 Super Bowls were mostly Belichick. All right. Although I think if you don't have a top 5 quarterback in the league at the time, not 2001, but 2003, 2004, the Patriots don't win the Super Bowl in 2003, 2004, even though they had the best team in the NFL those 2 years. There's no doubt about it. They had absolute awesome rosters. But Brady was a top 5 quarterback, and if you don't believe so, go back, watch those games, and you would understand. Especially from a physical standpoint, he was one of the best in the league in terms of passing the football and all of that stuff. And the thing about Brady and the greatness of Brady is, we're seeing it in Tampa Bay as well, is his ability to evolve, his ability to adapt, and his ability to play within multiple types of teams and multiple types of systems. And that's why I think that's why they were so perfect together, because Belichick evolved so much. He wanted to craft his team, his roster, to the way that the NFL was evolving through the times, and Brady was able to do that. But I think you had to say that if you had to give credit one way or the other to 2001, 2003, 2004, I would say up until 2006-ish is Bill Belichick. From that point on, Brady was more responsible for the success of the New England Patriots. Brady became the best player in the NFL. You could argue in 2006 with Riche Caldwell, but definitely in 2007. So then from 2007, 2008, he gets injured. They would have won the Super Bowl that year. Sorry, Steelers fans, but they would have. They went 11-5 with Matt Castle. Great coaching job by Bill Belichick, but people don't understand that Matt Castle actually went to the playoffs with a different franchise with the Chiefs. So Matt Castle was okay, all right? He went to the playoffs. He made a Pro Bowl outside of New England. But in 2009, they weren't very good, but they still had Brady, they still had Welker, and they still had Moss. They were good enough to make the playoffs. They lost. 2010, Brady was the MVP. He was back from the injury. He was 100%. All right, but I've always said, and people always say that Brady was carried by defenses, and this is a big reason. And I go into this in the Brady hater video and all that stuff, but like the Patriots defense, which Bill Belichick is known to be the greatest defensive coach of all time, the Patriots defense from 2009 to 2014, they were awful. They had one of the worst defenses in the league in 2010. They got ran on for over 200 yards by Ray Rice in the wild card in 2009. They were terrible in 2011. They were 32nd in the league in passing defense, and they made it to the Super Bowl. In 2013, they were bad, okay? And they had no weapons on offense. That's the year Gronk got hurt. They played a way better Broncos team with Peyton Manning, and they just had no chance. Then they finally get a defense in 2014, and hey, Brady's still playing really well and actually had a great year that year. And, you know, at the end of the year, I think he was better than Rodgers for like 3/4 of the year, but it wasn't good for the first quarter, so that's why Rodgers won the MVP. They win that. He had an incredible playoff run. They win the Super Bowl. 2015, Brady was second in MVP voting behind Cam Newton, and they almost beat the Broncos, who won the Super Bowl with a very limited roster because of injuries. But the Patriots roster got really good again from 2014 to 2017. And they won they went to two other they lost in the AFC Championship to the Super Bowl champion by 2 points in 2015. They lost the Super Bowl to Nick Foles in 2017. That was Belichick's fault, okay? That year, 2017, was Belichick's fault. They had an incredible team. They had a lot of injuries. Okay, Edelman was out for the year. Hightower was out for the year. They had a bunch of injuries. They had James Harrison as their top pass rusher. But not playing Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl is why they lost. It's as simple as that. It's why I don't want to say, I don't want to take anything away from the Eagles. But your quarterback threw for 530 yards and you lost. Okay, that's not Brady's fault. He had the best performance in the Super Bowl. And they lost, okay? The Eagles, as good as they were, as loaded as they were, the Patriots should have won if his defense makes one stop, okay? One. So that was Belichick's fault. 2018, great coaching year. Great coaching year. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. All of that stuff. That was great. That was both, I would say. More Belichick than Brady in 2018, but both were responsible. Last year, it fell apart because no weapons, and we're seeing it again. The fall of the roster in 2019, all right? The fall of the roster happened last year. Incredible defense. The defense was loaded, and it was the best in the league, one of the best in history through the first half of the year, and they just couldn't do it on offense. They tried to piece it together. It just couldn't happen. And now we're seeing that Brady still is really good. He's still elite if you give him talent. But Belichick was never able to replenish the talent after 2017. That's when it really started. Once they traded away Brandon Cooks, they could never replace Brandon Cooks. They could never get a receiver. They could never replace Gronk when Gronk left. They just failed to put talent around Brady. They just did. They had a chance to win last year because of how good their defense was, but they had zero receiving options. And this year, even with Cam Newton, no Brady, if you give him one receiver, they got a chance to make the playoffs. I honestly don't think this team's that bad. They're just criminally terrible in one area where they have no playmakers. They have no guys that can get open. They have no guys that can stretch the field. The Bills played 10 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. 10 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and you want your quarterback to beat that. I don't care if your quarterback is 2007 Brady, 2013 Peyton Manning, 84 Marino. I don't care, okay? You got Jacoby Myers, an undrafted quarterback in his second year as your best receiver on the team. Are you kidding me? And you expect to win in the NFL? Guys, I've said it. And this is the frustrating part to me about the Patriots. Because I come on here and I say, what's the second most important position? Wide receiver! It is! And they can't get a receiver. They draft N'Keal Harry, who's a bust. I'm sorry. I think the guy's a good guy. He's a bust. They drafted 2 tight ends this year that don't even play. Okay? Look at all the receivers that were in last year's draft. You had DK Metcalf in the second round. All Belichick had to do was look at the 40 times and just draft the fastest guy. But he drafted the slowest guy. And then this year, you got Justin Jefferson. You got Henry Ruggs. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got Jerry Jeudy. You got all these guys. Terry McLaurin in what, the 17th round last year? And you couldn't pick him? You couldn't pick one receiver. One. Guys, receiver's the second most valuable position right now. It is. It is. And Bill Belichick could not find one out of 2 of the best years for receiver I've ever seen. That's why they suck right now. Because of Bill Belichick, the GM. And this is a narrative that I have not brought up. I have not believed in, I will say, until this year. Because I don't think people are right when saying that, for the most part. They're often wrong. Because until the last 2 years, the Patriots have been winning. So obviously something worked, okay? The way they built their teams worked at that time. But once you see Brady regressing, once you see Gronk retire, once you see Edelman get older, it's your fault when you don't replace these players. It's your fault. Even the guy that we thought was the prototypical Patriot, Hunter Renfrow in the 7th round, you couldn't have picked him? Bro, I don't want to come across as a, whiny Patriots fan because I'm not trying to do that. But as an NFL analyst, I got to sit here and I got to critique what I got to critique. And the guy has not done his job to the best of his ability. The guy has not addressed what every person in the bar watching the Patriots on Sundays could tell you. They don't have any receivers. They don't have any tight ends. They got a great offensive line. Secondary's phenomenal. What else don't they have? Big people. So what happens? The Bills, who couldn't run versus the local high school team, run for 100 yards versus the Patriots. There's a problem. It's your defense, Bill. You didn't sign any defensive tackles. I guess those guys don't matter anymore. We're just going to let people run all day. And here's the thing. You can't afford to have no defensive line or no linebackers when you have no offense. So a team is just going to control the ball and score all these points, and you have no defensive line. So you can't, okay, I get it. You can play pass defense. Pass defense works when you have an offense. But when you don't have an offense, you can't win when you can't stop the run because other teams will just be able to run the clock out. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Part of the reason a team like the Packers, okay, the Packers aren't phenomenal or anything, but the way they built their team is that they have Aaron Rodgers, they have Devontae Adams, and the Packers are flawed because they should have traded, they should have drafted Chase Claypool, okay? They should have traded for Will Fuller today. They should have done they should have signed Robbie Anderson. They could have done all those things. They didn't, okay? Packers are flawed as well because they should have gotten another receiver, but they didn't, okay? Defensively, though, they've said, we have Aaron Rodgers. We're going to outscore people. And when we're in the lead, we can play pass defense. So we're not worried about run defense. All right. But then even them, they have Zadarius Smith. They have Preston Smith. They have Kenny Clark. That's more scheme related than it is talent related, in my opinion. They've done a good job constructing the roster, in my opinion. The Patriots have no receivers, no tight ends, a quarterback that's coming through a training camp, learning a system that's most people say the most complex in the game. And now he's having to carry a team like Superman because you got nobody. And your defense, that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, can't stop the run. So, like, the easiest thing that you can do in the NFL is stop the run. And the Patriots can't stop the run. The 49ers just ran the ball all game. Jimmy Garoppolo was terrible. And they beat New England by like 40 points. I don't even know what the score was. But it's like ridiculous. Like these things that are so obvious. This is why it's hard for me right now to cheer for the Patriots. And people are like, oh, Mitch, you're a Bucs fan. You're a Lions fan. You're a this and that. Obviously, I'm cheering for New England. But I'm trying to tell you that these things are just things I can't stand for as somebody that covers the league and understand what works and understand what doesn't, and seeing it week in, week out, seeing that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce actually mean something, seeing that DK Metcalf has helped Russell Wilson, seeing that the Seahawks are winning games despite having the worst defense maybe I've ever seen in my life. Like, okay, we're just not going to get any of these positions that Durkant, watching the game, could tell you that you need to draft these positions, but we're not going to draft them. All right, we're going to draft 2 slow tight ends in the 3rd round. All right. That's enough of the Patriots. But in terms of the blame, Bill Belichick, GM, is to blame, not Cam Newton. Because I don't think you could put Mahomes on this team and they would not be good. They wouldn't. Damiere Byrd is not good. Okay? I'm sorry.